Okay, folks, it's 2 o'clock, so I'm going to call the meeting to order. Thanks, everyone, for being here today. We've got a lot on the agenda. Some of the agenda items that I've put down there are not going to be resolved at this meeting, but they're things that we need to focus on long-term for the remainder of the year. So don't come away with the idea that we will solve all the problems today, but these are ongoing discussion items that we'll have to deal with. So the first thing I'd like to add is, are there any additions or deletions to the agenda in front of you?
Oh, second disc update needs to go on there.
Second disc update, okay. I'll give you a minute to talk about that if you want. Okay, with that being said, is there a motion to approve the previous minutes from the January meeting? First, do I get a second? All right, all opposed? All in favor? Everybody's in favor? Okay, thank you. All right, next management comments. Tom Judson.
So you'll see in your board packet, the board has, in your committee packet, the board has requested that you cover a number of items, which, there's not, as you indicated, there's not an expectation we're going to conquer the world all in one meeting. But if we could chip away at those on a regular basis, we'd really appreciate it. I think some of the bigger items, or the biggest item, is the board would like to see regular feedback on a monthly basis from the committee regarding the new wake regulations. And, are those working? Is it effective? Do we need to make further changes? Those types of things, that would be helpful. Non-lakes related stuff, as of close of business Monday, since March 1, we have sold 1,250 activity cards. Approximately 500 of those are new, meaning the people did not have one previously. And about 100 of those are dependent cards. So it's pretty clear that we're going to be busy at the pools this summer, pools and beaches and so forth. So it's going very well. With that being said, we're not getting a lot of reports from them. We're just trying to stay out of member services way because they continue to be slammed. They have 4 people answering phones and they're struggling to keep up. So they're just very, very busy. But it's gone very well. This last weekend we had a new residents meeting. There was 55 new residents. I asked people to raise their hand if they had an activity card, and about 45 out of the 55 had an activity card. So that's a real good ratio. And it was almost like the 10 that didn't were looking around going, what am I missing out on? So I wouldn't be surprised if some of those 10 went and have purchased one since then. So it's going well. That's about it.
Any idea where they are on boat renewals that were ahead of last year?
It's too early to tell. I would say that if you fast forward a month to 2 months from now, those would be valid questions. Because what happened, what a lot of people did was they didn't do their renewal on boat, golf, anything until March 1. They could have, but they just chose not to. Luckily, we anticipated that, and we repositioned a lot of staff from other departments up at member services, but even with the additional staff, we were swamped. So we just need a little bit more time. The other thing that I wanted to mention was on March 17th, on Tuesday, we have the Meet the Candidates. It's at 6 p.m. At Rayburn Hall. We have an election coming up. We have 6 candidates vying for 3 board positions. The board positions are 3-year terms, and so we encourage everybody to, if you can't attend the meeting, to at least watch it live stream and make an informed decision. If you go onto the PUA's website, you can look at all the candidate profiles. We have recorded statements from all of them. So, we're trying to encourage our property owners to make informed decisions, and and we're trying to facilitate that. So if you're if you're looking for something to do next Tuesday, please come to the Meet the Candidates event. 6 p.m. at Rayburn Hall. And that's it.
Thanks, Tom. Any other board member comments? Okay.
Related to activity cards, the different is boat registrations, and when do you anticipate those starting to happen for this new season? And have we separated out wake boat people so that we'll start to keep track?
So some of the answer is going to be the exact same. It's I would say give us a little bit of time to report on how we're doing on boat registrations. You know, it's only been a couple days since the first, so it's too early. And yes, we are separating out if a person has a wake boat that is registered in a separate category and they get a different sticker. Okay.
Now, is that up to them to realize that, or will the people doing registrations be
Well,
able to-
so it doesn't say on the boat registration, you know, from the state, the boat registration doesn't say wake boat.
Right.
They've been given an explanation of what a wake boat is and what a wake boat does. Remember, in the regulation that we put together, we described the action, not the boat.
Right.
And so I anticipate, you know, we had 10 registered last year. I anticipate we'll have 10 or maybe more registered this year. And at the recommendation of the Lakes Committee, we also are giving them a different sticker,
Right.
so that our lake rangers from a distance can say, okay, that is a wake boat, and so forth.
So those stickers are ready to go, and
The stickers, yeah, we already have the stickers. I don't know if we've given any out yet, but we've already ordered them. We have 250 because that was the minimum order. What are you going to do? The minimum order is 250. You get 250. So we're set for a while. Now, one of the questions on here was there was discussion about the size of the sticker, and we didn't land on an answer. So the sticker for the wake boats is the same size as the other ones. There was some conversation about making them larger, and then some people didn't like that idea because then you're messing up the boat. Since we didn't land on an answer, and we knew that we needed the stickers for registration period, we got stickers, and they're the same size, but they are different, so the rangers can identify them.
And to piggyback on that a little bit, we're going to let it run to the end of March, because technically you're not delinquent until the 1st of April. And then we're going to reach out. We're going to go to member services, get the list of wake boat registrations, and then reach out to those individuals and set up a meeting to talk to them directly. So,
And just so we're trying to give member services space. They're dealing with a customer that is there, and so as much as I want them to run me a bunch of reports and get information out of the system, the customer in front of them is far more important than reports. So in time, we will absolutely provide the board with the Lakes Committee, all the committees. We're going to provide them with information as to how we're doing. But it's the 11th. A lot of months left. That's it.
Thanks. Rick or John, anything from you guys?
yes, the new signage with the proper language about being a member has a lot of those signs have gone up. We ordered a second round of signs, and I have those, and we're putting those out as we discover them. It's amazing where we find some of these signs. So if anyone sees an old POA only, members only sign, it doesn't have the green logo on it, let me know and we'll replace it. We had a trout stocking on the 27th of February. It was a little bit late last month, but we did get it in February, as we're supposed to do. Our walleye /sogeye broodstock collection is largely complete, and we already have eggs in our hatchery, so that's going very well. We are completing a repair on the drawdown siphon tube at Lake Ann today, and then we have a lot of anticipated rain. One of my guys told me they're calling for 7 to 10 inches of rain in the next week. That is if we hit the high side of everything that's forecast, which we tend to be doing lately. So the good news is all the big projects are done on Lake Ann, and if it comes back up, we're just going to let it go, and we will not have to revisit this issue next year. We could move on to a different lake.
But the plan at the moment is to keep it down until the
Till
30
Monday.
Till Monday of
Monday the 16th.
Monday the 16th.
So we're right there.
Okay.
So, yeah. So if we get a lot of rain, I'm not going to make a big effort to draw it down again for a day or two. It would be ridiculous at this point. We do have 3 new lake rangers hired to help us get compliance with our new regulations. They're going through training today. I feel really good about all 3 of them, and they should be on their own within a week or so. And our Secchi disc data that we ask volunteers to help us with will be getting started on April 1st. And Rick, I think, I believe Loch Lomond is the only one where we need a backup. You don't currently have a backup, is that? You do? Okay.
Larry Lamar.
Okay.
I haven't made contact with him yet, but I think we're good. And we sent out a message today. So for Secchi Disc, we did send out a message today to see if any of them need training from Chris, and he's volunteered. So we'll probably meet with Chris or give him a chance to meet with Chris regardless.
Okay.
But our primaries and backups are ready, and I think we start on. Is Monday? Is it hard and fast on Mondays?
We like it to be Monday because that allows us to respond to that data and do fertilization or whatever we need to do that week.
So we'll begin on April 6th, which is a Monday. That'll
Sure.
be our first.
That'll be
meeting.
fine. That'll be fine.
April 6th.
3 new rangers, are they in addition to what we already have?
We were carrying 4 through the winter, and I got one of my guys resigned about a week ago, so we were down 1, so we were at 3. These 3 make 6, and then we will have, as the summer gets nearer in May, we will hire 2 more, which will be 40-hour per week people through the busy season of the summer. I feel like I'm going to get 1 back from last year who's well trained and did very well for us, and so we'll still be looking for 1 new person. So we'll have 8 through the busy season.
8 full-time?
They will not be full-time. There will be 2 full-time and 6 that will be limited to 30 hours a week.
And at the beginning of Rick's presentation, he talked about the signage, the member signage at the lake entrances, and that was another one of the recommendations from the Lakes Committee. I just want to make sure. So, you've asked us to do these things, and we're following through.
And the first day, the first was the 1st of March, Sunday, I think it was. Our rangers encouraged about 25 people to leave the premises who did not have membership identification. So they're sticking to the letter of the law, if you will, and asking people to leave that aren't supposed to be here.
So in the past, when they drove around, if the person wasn't a member, I guess they could sell them one last year?
Correct,
But they can't do
and that's
that
what they
now?
did, and we left it to their discretion, or were they going to be a hellraiser, And in some respects, it makes it easier on them because we're removing that discretion from the ranger, and technically we probably shouldn't have been putting that on their shoulders anyway. So no, it's cut or dry. Either you have the card or you don't. And we're using this time as a we're being really strong right now, because if we're lax now, it's going to continue to be a problem into the future. And so we want, just like a law enforcement officer is not going to let you get by without your driver's license, the same applies here. So.
Can you tell me once again, what period of time those 28 were?
It was the first day,
The
25
very first-
on
25.
Sunday, the first day.
Wow.
Yeah.
Little question you mentioned about the next lake drawdown. Are there any other discussions about the next lake you might draw down?
At this point, Lake Rayburn is about the only one that we haven't gotten to recently that we feel like we can draw down. It's been wet over the last year, and Lake Brittany has been at full pool. But in the past, it's been hard to maintain that lake. So if we would draw it down, it might be down for a year before it comes back. So that's likely one that we're just not going to deal with. And the same goes to a little bit lesser extent for Norwood. So Rayburn is the last one before we start over.
I see.
And Lake Avalon with the beach, we realized that might require a quicker turnaround on the next drawdown, but I haven't gotten any indication from Jones' group that will be necessary anytime soon.
Thanks.
I would also, just kind of as a warning, with the rapid warming temperatures, we're supposed to be approaching 80 by the end of this week. I would expect there to be some algae problems, some filamentous algae problems, especially on Loch Lomond. It's something that we're aware of, and when we hear about it, we'll react accordingly.
Hey, Rick, just from personal observation the last couple of days, Avalon has some algae bloom in it, and also some extremely clear water. And Rayburn is extremely clear right now, and so is Norwood, with green algae on the bottom. Just FYI.
Yeah.
It seemed like Rayburn just cleared up overnight.
Is that right?
Just a few days ago, maybe a week or so ago, it was really, really murky. But all that I looked down, I could see the bottom of the lake just that quick.
Well, we'll see what happens with this rain, and then
Yeah,
we'll
sure.
take it from there. That's all I have.
Okay, thanks. John, you got anything? Okay, so we talked about the Lake Ann drawdown. I think, Jason, you had something on the kayak tournament, fishing tournaments?
Yeah, thank you. Just wanted to follow up with you guys. It's been about since 2017 we started hosting kayak tournaments here. We had 2 national events, and one in 2017, 2 in 2018. In 2019 we had monthly tournaments that brought in a lot of people from all over to fish these lakes. And since then, we filmed with kayak bass fishing. We filmed 2 TV shows. We told people to come here to fish. And now with the rules changed, I think we had some unintended consequences of not really being able to do kayak tournaments here. And these people that were moving here to do this stuff are kind of complaining to me. They're saying, hey, we moved here, based on, your recommendation to come here. We can't even fish tournaments anymore. So I just want to bring that up to everybody and just let everybody know some of the unintended consequences is, the kayak tournaments are required to have lakes that are public to anybody, or we can buy the permit like you're talking about and be able to get people onto the lakes. But I just wanted to bring that up. And
So my understanding is now with the new regulations, you have to have a membership card in order to fish a kayak tournament?
yes.
Or a guest pass.
So why couldn't your folks buy guest passes?
You can't
That
buy a
was
guest
not on
pass.
the
We
Right.
don't sell them.
That's right, it's just a membership deal, right?
They'd have to get it through a member.
So there's there's kayak tournaments every day of the year. They're month-long tournaments. You fish any waters around here. Typically, people would come here to fish because it's great kayaking. But that's no longer the case. You can't fish here in these tournaments, and most people, well, like myself, are fishing these tournaments, any chance I get, but, yeah, go ahead.
The people that come to do the tournaments, do they have to register or ahead of time?
Yeah,
And
we were,
might that be an opportunity to give them a special tournament pass or something?
that's what we did the last couple of years to meet the regulations.
We were effectively doing that with, it was a kind of a combination day pass and temporary one-day boat registration. And on our end, and you can expand on this, we've got our concerns on our end about whether that kind of crosses the line. But from the standpoint of the organization that puts on these events, they have a problem too sanctioning an event in an area that's not public. So,
Right, so the idea of public is that anybody can go and buy one of these permits. Now, that's not the case. Nobody can go and buy these unless they are a member.
Can you, to explain that further, the lake doesn't have to be free. You
No.
just have,
needs to be-
everyone has to be able to come in and get on the lake.
You
And
can't
bef-
discriminate.
Right, and before there was a fee that that the fishermen were paying, which was
$10.
$10, and that was essentially a one-day non-motorized boat. Correct, it had to be a kayak, that was the deal.
Right,
Non-motorized boat and a boat pass.
right. And now you have motorized kayaks are going crazy right now with these little half horsepower motors, electric motors. It's the big craze. It's unbelievable. How
Well,
this is
Jason,
growing.
Jason, can you back up and clarify, do we have a rule change that has impacted this?
Yes, when it went private, and
March 1st.
yep, it eliminated it.
Okay. Isn't that what,
So,
do you have something you recommend then, or, I mean, these are private lakes and we
Is there
don't
a
want.
limit on how many of those guest passes a member can purchase? Could Jason sponsor the tournament and buy
so that's a
10
great
passes or
question.
20 passes?
So we talked about, so first of all, you are correct. This is kind of the unintended consequences. A lot of our property owners were talking that they wanted to make sure that lakes were for the membership and so forth, and that was part of the 2020 plan. And so through this year, we're going to have to, deal and sort through all these unintended consequences. Last month, you dealt with the issue regarding the kayak demo day, and that's similar situation. And so this last Monday, the rec committee was talking about this exact issue, on people using the gun range. A person hosting 10 guests is one thing, but a person hosting 75 guests is probably another thing. And so that committee is still working through it. The Rules and Regulations Committee is going to have to weigh in, and potentially the board is going to have to weigh in on this issue. So I don't have an easy answer for you, other than, yes, it's a concerning.
Jason, how many people did you usually have at the start?
The last tournament I was at 2 weekends ago, 155.
So
Last weekend, 250.
So last year, how much was the pass last year when the kayak?
$10.
And do you know what revenue we brought in from all the tournaments for the whole year?
You averaged anywhere from 30 to 45 people per event.
We
at-
didn't get as
at
many
$10.
people at these tournaments because of the fee.
Okay.
You
So if
know,
we made $300 per tournament, we had how many tournaments? 4, 5?
5 or
we had a-
6.
7, I believe.
So we're talking 2,000 neighborhood plus or minus $2,000 for the revenue into the POA. So has Doug made a legal ruling on whether there's a workaround to this issue or not, or has he weighed in on this issue yet?
So what we're dealing with right now, and the Rules and Regulations Committee, and Jerry looks like he's going to jump in any second now, is weighing in on this issue, and you know, so we have a new rule, and now we need to start interpreting that rule and how it impacts all the nooks and crannies of the issues. And so, Jerry, why don't you jump in at this point?
Yeah, one of the questions that I get asked out of this, why should lakes be any different than golf or swimming pools or any place else? You know, and that's hard to answer to the membership, because as members, we pay John, we pay Rick, we pay the lake rangers, we pay for all the maintenance that's done on the lakes. We pay for all of this stuff. So why should a person coming from the outside come in and especially play in a tournament to catch fish that we have paid to have raised? And those are the questions we have to answer. Has anybody got an answer for me?
Well, one thing is the difference between golf and pools and tennis and the other facilities is that some we do open to non-members and some we don't. The pools, we don't let anybody in, but non-members can come and play tennis, for instance. You know, we drew some lines. I think the question is, we drew some lines in the 2020 plan. I think the question now is some of the things that weren't debated. Where are the lakes more like tennis, or are they more like the swimming pools?
Well, on the 2020 plan, it was clear that the lakes would be for the membership and their guests. And so, you know, this is really at the level of the rules and regs and at the board, where they need to interpret, you know, here's the new rule, now they need to interpret all the nooks and crannies of it, and we have to give the board and the Rules and Regs Committee which may not be convenient, but what we don't want to do is we don't want to go to the membership and ask them for an assessment increase and show them the 2020 plan, and then immediately after it passes start undermining it. You know, there are exceptions. For example, at the gun range, they are allowed to have tournaments like the Cancer Challenge, and we even talked about those well before the passage of the assessment increase. But you know, the Cancer Challenge is one thing. For tournaments is another, and where is that line? Can you sponsor 10 people? Probably yes. Can you sponsor 75? Probably no. Where's the line in between, so that we can go to Rick and Trey and the Lakes Committee and go, okay, this is the answer.
Well, let me frame it in a different way. It's not just the $2,000 that you're missing out on. It's the people that come here to fish. Like, I would go for a week or two to pre-fish a lake. Mm-hmm. So I'm buying hotel, gas. I'm spending my money in this city. When tournaments come, big tournaments come to cities, they typically pay. The last FLW tournament in Hot Springs, they paid the tournament organization $250,000. So we're talking millions of dollars that you're missing out on revenue to the businesses and the people that live here in Bella Vista. That's what you're really missing out on. And kayakers have, you know, these guys have a lot of money, and they spend it in your city.
I just wish we had a hotel that they could stay at,
They do too.
Yeah, that was my
They do
comment.
too.
because I don't think we have a hotel.
No.
But let's go back for the Lakes JAC. I think to some degree, the consequences were intended. We do want the lakes to be primarily for those people that have invested in our community. Now, if we go back, I think our position was, if we charge them a fee, and those kayakers, by charging them a fee, we're getting some revenue. So I think we overlooked that, or I think we we saw a benefit to the POA and the lakes with revenue. So I think that probably doesn't change, where we would support something where people could participate and utilize, but it does belong to the property owners, so we have an obligation to protect that, don't we?
I think we
I mean,
do,
so-
and I think the distinction is, to his point, some of the rules, some of the tournaments want public lakes so anybody could come in. And that might be on an exception basis, I don't know, but yeah, you make a good point.
So, I mean, to the extent that we could do something for them because you're saying that there's a lot of benefit to the POA and the city of Bella Vista. So how do we match those two?
We put our own money in producing TV shows. So we put that, it costs about $22,000 each. So we believed in it. But with this change, we're seeing that, it just, you guys didn't follow up on this part of it.
So I think Tom makes a good point. The Rules and Regs Committee, legal, has to ferret this out. And at this point, I would just say that let's keep an open mind on it, but I don't think at this meeting we'll be able to resolve anything until the
No,
rules
but
and
we could
regs.
ask Jason, do you think there's a possible workaround?
Well, I wanted to bring it to you guys and just put it out there. I don't know all the details. I'm new to this myself, but you guys have been here, living here a lot longer than I've been around here. So I just want to bring it up and just, let's put our heads together.
Well, Jason,
I
what
have a
would you
question.
recommend? Go ahead, Mark.
I have a question, Jason. Is it common for their tournament groups to use private lakes, or
They don't.
they don't? Okay.
There have been special events, if you can get them to host that and bring that revenue into this town, it'll be a special event, like Bienville Plantation in Florida. They have a bunch of lakes there that's totally private, and it's very expensive to get in there, but it's a way to generate revenue and host big tournaments like that. So that is an idea.
Yeah, as a suggestion, you would have a variation on the rules that would allow this sort of thing? Would you
That
recommend
would
that?
be like a special occasion where everybody has access that is in the event. Like in the one in Bienville Plantation, only 10 people get to go to it.
I
'Cause
see.
it's that exclusive.
The being public, the difference between the public and private, could there be a number on it, or would there be a, if we were opening it up for a tournament, could you say it's, this is a private lake, but we could do 50 boats, or does it have to be everyone can come to these tournaments? There could be 10,000 people in these tournaments, or can it be everyone can come to the end of our registration for however many spots we
with
have?
kayak tournaments, it's a little bit different. I don't even think you'll notice the people there because they're in kayaks. They're not making much, waves. They're not making any waves. They're usually around the banks, and they're probably fishing at night when nobody's on there anyway.
No lakes to deal with.
But one of the things to think about, maybe, and this just came to me, is like the organization is called Kayak Bass Fishing, and you have to be a member of that one. So maybe if you had an open or have it open to KBF members as a partnership or something like that, maybe that would work. I don't know. We'd have to take it to them for their committee as well.
Rick, I think your group allows so many bass tournaments a year. I guess this will affect those the same way.
No, the new rule won't affect it at all. Because
They don't have to be members or guests or-
the traditional tournaments were all the boats had to be registered with the POA. So likely, the owner of the boat had his boat registered, and his fishing partner could be a guest.
Okay.
But
All the boats are POA registered.
yes. And as far as having the kayak tournaments interfere or maybe displace a traditional bass fishing tournament, that wasn't really an issue either. because where there was a conflict, the traditional boats got preference. So if there was a tournament on Loch Lomond, for instance, then the kayak tournaments could occur on all lakes but Loch Lomond. And it also gave access to the smaller lakes, which we don't otherwise allow tournaments on anyway.
Is there any benefit for people fishing these lakes?
The
For
smaller.
you guys, or just any of them? I mean,
Well,
is fishing
we
good for it?
like to see harvest of smaller fish, and I know it's not typical that tournaments harvest the fish that they catch, but we have an excess of small fish. So
Okay, Jerry?
The next question that I get asked by a number of people is that if these people from the outside, they're not current members, and we don't have members that are willing to sponsor them, why don't they buy a lot and become a member of the POA? Then they can fish whenever they want.
Well, that's what I did. But now, I'm practicing for the series of tournaments that I have coming up, and with it being private, I can't submit a fish on the online tournaments to even practice. So I have no benefit for even myself to come here to fish. So it'd be hard for me to tell somebody to go buy something when there's no benefit for them anymore. So.
Okay. Good discussion. I'd like to follow up on this at a later date. And again, the rules and regs are going to have to ferret out where this is going to land, because this one sounds a little complicated. So moving on, Seki disc. Rick, do we have to say anything else about?
I think we covered it.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so there's a couple more on the new business. We have several things we need to talk about. So we're going to have 3 openings on the committee, and Paul Bickford and Grace Turley have agreed to, their term also expires in June, and they have agreed to serve another term on the Lakes JEC. So what I'd like to do is have a formal motion to recommend that Paul Bickford and Grace Turley be recommended to the POA board to serve another term.
I'll make that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, so that formal motion will go to the board. So the next item on the agenda is discuss the process for vetting Lakes JAC applicants to fill the 3 open positions, and that's Lloyd Walker, who's moved, Marvin Macedo, who is not re-upping, and Harold, who is not re-upping after the June meeting. So I've got copies of 3 applications in my possession that I will give to you after the meeting. I've made copies for you guys. They are not to be made public because there's personal information on there. But I thought one of the ideas that I had, and this is open for discussion, I don't have all the answers, but one of the ideas that I had is maybe at the next meeting or the following meeting, we could invite the candidates who are interested in filling these positions to come before the group, give a 5 or 10 minute update on what their qualifications and their interest and what have you, learn a little about them, and then, assuming we had more than 3 applicants, then we could vote on those members at a later date. Am I violating any rules by doing that?
No, it's at the committee's discretion as to how to select new committee members.
Okay.
And everything you've described is fair and reasonable.
Okay. Anybody have any other ideas on how we might go about this? Because I thought if the people were invited to the meeting, they could come up and, again, give a 5 or 10 minute spiel about who they are, where they're from, why they want to be on the Lakes Committee. We'd all get a chance to hear them, and then we could vote. So if you guys are in agreement with that, I will put that on the agenda. We have to decide, and the recommendation to the board has to be made by when?
Well, since there's always a lag between between your recommendation and the board approval, if you could possibly make a decision at next month's meeting, that would be preferred.
Okay.
So have them come, I like the idea, and why don't you invite them to the next meeting?
Yeah, we can invite them to the next meeting, and then we could we could either vote that day, or we could, I guess, have if we needed a little more time to decide, we might have an offline vote or something like that, or vote at the next meeting, but we can shoot for that day.
So we have one position open and 3 candidates
We have
vying.
three positions open.
Oh, three?
And I
Well-
have 3 applications with a potential 4th application that we think might come
I
forward.
thought that Grace and I filled 2 of them, and then you have.
You did, but there's 5 people going off. So
Oh, 5.
Lloyd Walker has left. Marvin
that's right.
Macedo is not interested in staying
Yeah,
on, and then Harold is not interested. So there's
And
3
then-
positions. That's
They're
why
here, yes. but I
you
thought-
guys are still here. We still have 3 openings.
We still have 3 openings, and we got 3 candidates.
3 openings, 3 candidates with a potential 4th candidate. So more to come on that, and I'll set that up, and I'll call these folks, and hopefully they can attend next month's meeting and come in front of the group.
If if somebody at home watching right now is interested in doing it, or if somebody were to approach us later this week and was interested in doing it, we're still accepting applications.
We are. I would say we could accept applications until the next meeting.
Yeah. And they just need to get a hold of Tammy, our corporate secretary.
For the application.
Yes, and they are online also on our website.
Okay, the next item is begin discussions concerning regulating size, horsepower, dimensions, capability, speed, and number of boats allowed on POA lakes. And I put a comment in here, do we regulate vessels or activity? So I guess I need a little bit of context, at least my personal view of this is we've addressed the wakeboarding issue, at least this year. Who's asking this, and then do we legally have the right, because I don't want to go down a path that legal comes back and says, well, we really can't technically regulate size of boats or horsepower or types of boats. So we kind of went at the wakeboat issue from an activity standpoint. And so if we're going to be consistent, shouldn't we be regulating activity that these boats might or might not be doing versus vessel size or vessel type?
Well, if you recall, when we brought Doug in, our corporate attorney, he talked about kind of an all or nothing approach. So where people were talking about grandfathering in, he was like, no, you can't do that. I think what this is asking the committee to look at is, are there any vessels, for example, a cigarette boat, which I can't see anybody bringing one onto our lake, but maybe someone does, and they're zipping up and back, and they're really causing problems, as opposed to waiting for them, a person to potentially move in and have one, and then we have to go through the wake boat issue again. Potentially we look at adopting new regulations that say you can't have a boat longer than this and an engine larger than this, and make sure that we can't have cigarette boats. The cigarette boats are then banned, and it's a ban which is allowed.
Okay. Okay. So in my opinion, this would be like cigarette boats. I know we talked about houseboats in the past. The size and horsepower and dimensions, I think, get more complicated, particularly when you talk about pontoon boats and bass boats, because I've seen pontoon boats as big as 32 feet, and I've seen bass boats as big as 22 feet with 350 horsepower on them. So that's something, anybody else have any comments on that, or is that something we put on the next agenda?
And let me jump in. I threw in those things, and I'm not a boater, so I'm coming for, I know a little bit. You guys have educated me over the last 4 years, but I'm coming for a little bit point
It's
of
fine,
ignorance.
try it.
So you're completely correct that use this as the starting point, not the ending point. If we say the size of the engine and you're like, that's not going to work, but we could go in this other direction, I think that's acceptable.
Well, wouldn't regulating the speed pretty well take care of all of those?
Except it's hard to enforce.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna say, that, it doesn't make a difference, you got a 5,000 horsepower boat or 100 or 10 horsepower boat. If the speed limit's the speed limit, that you can't go any faster than that.
But at the same time,
Got to enforce it.
if you start regulating horsepower and things like that, you're gonna automatically just segregate a group of folks, and you're going to have the same issue that you do with the probably worse issue with wake boats, because fishermen tend to be more of them, and they might be more adamant. But
And it also said number of boats. I don't know how you'd control that, since people live on the lake and keep boats in the water, and
yeah.
10 might go in the ramp, but then 10 take off from their dock, so.
I mean, I would be willing to, again, this is my personal opinion, like, I would say cigarette boats and houseboats, I would be willing to say, they're not here now. We could say ban those, and the rest of things, even though a speed limit might be hard to enforce, it's probably, I don't know, that, to me, that would be easier, because that's kind of an activity versus the size of a boat. If somebody buys a 32-foot pontoon boat and putzes around on Loch Lomond and doesn't cause anybody any issue, is that really the issue? It's the activity or the bad behavior that's really causing our issues. So,
I'd like to make a comment.
sure.
If we go back to the concerns that have been raised by property owners on the lakes that have come to us, and they've come to the POA board and raised the question, do we have a size limit? Can someone with a 40-foot boat come and put it on our lakes? I believe the answer is yes. And also they've made those same complaints to the Lakes JAC. As a matter of fact, when Marvin and I did the initial study on wake boats, that topic came up, and we tabled the discussion at the Lakes JAC about limiting size and horsepower. So I think it's a legitimate question. My recommendation that we give it to a smaller group within the Lakes JAC to talk about. If we try to say we can't have cigarette boats, then we get into a definition. The attorney, Doug, is not going to like that term because it has to be defined. So I think it's a legitimate question for property owners to raise as a concern. So could we table that for here and ask maybe some volunteers to look at what might be reasonable regulations for the POA or for the Bella Vista Lakes to limit size and horsepower?
I think it's a monument. It's going to be a monumental task, but yeah, I would suggest we probably need to do that.
One of the things I brought up on my presentation was weight limit. Limit the amount of weight, because the heavier the boat, the bigger the wake. So, and at the time I did it was 4,000 pounds, registered weight. What the boat is registered on their registration, it shows the amount of weight. And I recommended it go 4,000 pounds. That's going to eliminate any large vessels, cigarette boats, those type of things.
That's true. That's an idea. I like that, at least initially.
Or we know things are just gonna keep getting bigger, so maybe if we knew the biggest boats in Bella Vista now are 30 feet and 300 horsepower, you'd draw the limit at that, and then when things keep getting bigger, then that's already in place.
But do you really want to ban a guy who buys a $80,000 or $100,000 bass boat with 400 horsepower that behaves in a normal manner and just goes about his business fishing on the lakes? Do you really want to ban that guy?
No, that's why I like weight.
That's why I'm saying every time I thought about this, it's like I hit a wall, because if you do this, then this is going to be a doozy, in my opinion. It deserves further discussion, but I don't. It's going to be a big issue, I think, because of the things we just talked about.
It is a big issue. The thing that we're lacking, in the same way with the next item on the agenda, and that is some hard data. How many people do we now have out on the lake? How many boats are moored? How many boats come in on a daily basis? How many people? The carrying capacities of the different lakes vary. Loch Lomond can take more people, more boats than what Windsor. Windsor more than Ann, and Ann more than the rest of them because of the size of the reservoir. There's been a very large amount of a lot of research that has been done on these things. What we're trying to do is get ahead of the curve rather than reacting to something like the wake boats now. I mean, we're reacting to that, and we're still at a point where half like what we did, half don't like what we did. So we need to have some more data, some more research done to find out, how many more can we have? One of the things that I find on the boating regulations, it allows houseboats. It allows boats that have toilets that empty into the lake. I mean, these things, we've got to get ahead of them rather than be catch up all the time with everything. And without that, the data and so on, that's all we can do is, hey, this is my opinion. And this is your opinion. This is your opinion. And we have nothing to back anything up. We are doing some damages to the lake shores. At this point, is it doing more damage with the boats than it is with the normal wind action? That's debatable because we don't know yet. We do know that the deeper the lake and where the boat motor is operating, that changes the wake that comes out of it. There's an organization that I would hope that you would contact them and work with them. The acronym for it is NASBLA. It's the National Association of State Boating Law Administrators. Every state belongs to it. There's one state may be the state parks that have the lakes, the boating regulations. It may be the Fish and Game Department, may be the county sheriff. Each state is a little bit different. Some of them have their own units, like Florida. They have a freshwater and a saltwater units. But they deal with these things all the time. And they have the background of the research and so on. They're on the website. In fact, last week, they were holding their convention in Texas. Arkansas could be another place where they could hold it. But while I'm talking here a little bit, it really doesn't matter a whole lot whether you regulate the vessel or the activity because they go hand in hand. If you regulate the activity and say that, 10 people can be out there at one time water skiing, there might already be 300 boats out there fishing, as an example. So it gets a little difficult to regulate activity. The types of boats and so on, those things can be, and I think they should be, somewhat regulated. But it's going to take time to do it. We're not even going to finish that this year, I don't think. As far as the next one, looking at setting up a lake watch program, much like your neighborhood watch. In fact, use the same kind of guidelines. But if you can get, especially the 3 lakes, Loman, Windsor, and Ann, that will have the wake boats, maybe half a dozen people on each of those lakes that are, not all of them need to be at one time, but so that there's somebody that's watching the lake, and when they see waves coming in that are going up over their docks and so on, they're contacting somebody, get someone out there then, so that we can get more data on it. If they can take a picture of this is what that wake does. We may need to end up and get a few rangefinders so that they can tell, okay, yeah, that boat's 300 feet, this is what it did. This one's 150 feet, this is what it did, kind of a thing. But if we can get that data all summer long, that will help us a whole lot, because then we'll know how many people are water skiing at the same time a wake boat is, how many people are fishing at the same time other activities. So those are the things that would help. So hopefully we can get that instigated fairly rapidly. Thank you.
well, it's clear to me we're not going to be able to satisfy everyone. When we apply the restrictions, there's going to be screaming and hollering regardless, and that we do need to apply some, and that your idea about watching the lakes with rangefinders, everybody has a video camera these days, and it's easy for someone to say, oh, there goes somebody, they can just get their cell phone out and video it real quick. It's not a big deal. And I think the folks that have been here at this meeting should be ones that would volunteer to do this. And in fact, one said, I'll call you, he's going to call me whenever this happens. I said, okay, I'll come over and I'll do the videoing. So we'll see how that works out.
I tend to think that the Loch Lomond and Windsor in particular are going to have a lot of, the watchdogs are already out there. I mean, if it's any, just the people who showed up at all these meetings, is there a way to formalize it? Maybe, I don't know. Again, but I think you're going to have people that are, they have a special sticker on the boat. I think you're going to have a lot of people particularly reporting bad behavior.
Well, and we're just trying to make sure, too often Rick gets a report about bad behavior and it happened 2 weeks ago, and there's nothing he can do. But if we have a lake watch, they can call up the lake ranger and say, hey, there's a red boat on Loch Lomond, and it's not obeying the rules, is coming to 100 feet out, and we can dispatch a ranger to get out there and talk to that person and observe it and so forth. But it happened about 2 weeks ago. That doesn't help at all.
And I agree. Is that number posted on the?
Boat number or something. Call number.
Is the phone number posted on the lake, on the bulletin board at the lakes where you launch?
In some cases, the old sign is still there, and I just pulled one down today that needs to be replaced. Previously, violations like that were reported to the police department, and so the Lake Ranger phone number will be up and ready to go this year at all locations before the recreation season comes.
But will the number be posted so that
Yes.
somebody can? It will be posted at
Yes.
the boat ramps. Okay, so that's a step in the right direction. I think.
Matt, if I could, I'd like to make a motion that we make a subgroup within the Lakes JAC to begin looking further into limitations of boats, the watch program, and the success of our new rules. So could we consider that?
The success of the new rules, I would say the first two I would agree with you on the success of the new rules. And I was going to, let's talk about that just a little
Okay.
bit before you go there. So the success of the new rules, I think we're going to have monthly meetings. Rick always gives an update. Can you be the source of that information so that we can report to the board?
Sure.
Okay. So I would say that.
Come through your ranger, so.
Yeah, so we'll get reports on a monthly basis because Rick or John are going to be at our meetings, and then we can report that when we give our update to the board. And in addition to that, I guess if there are any other activities or any other phone calls that we receive, obviously we'd want to report those also. So I don't know if we need a committee to look at that, because to me that's pretty straightforward, but the other two I would agree with you 100%.
Okay.
So if you want to make that motion on the.
Well, and can I
ahead, Tom.
suggest?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think the Lake Watch idea is something that we could potentially implement relatively quickly. I think the dimensions, the weight, I think that's going to be a heck of a beast to tackle,
Okay.
as you've indicated. But I think the Lake Watch, I think that's something that a subcommittee could take on relatively quickly, and we could potentially get it implemented before the season starts. And that's going to go hand in hand with the new making sure that the new regulations are successful. If we've established these new regulations, and part of the new regulations is education, and we're going to talk to those people, as Rick indicated, but we also remember that everybody forgets. And so educating and enforcement, that's going to help make, in my opinion, it's going to help make those new regulations successful. So I like the idea of I personally like the idea of the Lake Watch, and I think, so I would recommend that we split the two.
Okay.
Whether we have two committees or something like that, that would be my recommendation.
Okay, that's a good idea. And let's do the Lake Watch first, since that seems to be, if we can do something quickly.
Let's form them both today.
Let's do. Let's do,
Is that
if we
okay?
can.
It's fine with me. Somebody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion, we do it, yes,
Okay, do we
absolutely.
have volunteers?
I'll volunteer.
Okay,
For which, okay, so which one do you want to tackle first?
let's do the one for the Lake Watch first, because I think that's the most immediate need.
Now, I don't live on a big lake, so do we have to be on the big lake to participate in this Lake Watch, or are we
I
just
think
going
so,
to
because
rely
I don't think we
on?
have enough big lake people in the meeting.
Well, don't we envision the Lakes JEC trying to stimulate the discussion? Now, Tom, you mentioned you think it'd be fairly easy, so what would you need from us would it be administered out of part of one of the POA offices, or organized, or would we be organizing it?
Well, ideally, this committee would organize it where, maybe what we can do is similar to Neighborhood Watch. You create captains, and the captains are kind of responsible. And I don't think you have to live on the lake, but I think that's helpful. But also, we had a large number of lake residents that brought the wake boat issue to our attention. I would
Use
think
them.
that those would be a
Yeah. Prime
good
candidate.
source for volunteers. I would
Prime
hope they would
candidates.
volunteer to help. And some of it is kind of informal. I mean, we're not looking at a huge amount of training here. It's more like, here's the regulations. Make sure you're educated on the regulations. Here's the telephone number for the lake ranger. You see something, report something.
You put that out as a monthly bulletin and have a list of things, and then the color of the boat, numbers, if you can get it or whatever.
Mm-hmm. And as Jerry said, maybe we have to, maybe the POA ponies up and we buy a couple range finders and distribute those onto a couple different lakes and everything. That way, that will help with the education. Oh my God, that boat is too close. And they use the range finder and they're at 250 feet. Okay, they're not close. You thought they were close, but they're actually legal. But I think we're going to need to find a volunteer that will be kind of the hub that's going to coordinate, because you're going to have people that are going to join and drop and join and drop and so forth.
You need a captain on Lowman, you need a captain on Windsor, and you need a captain on AM, I would think.
Beyond that, I don't think you need anything.
What's that?
Beyond that, I don't think you need anything.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have any, the other lakes are all no wake, so if you had 3 captains on each of the big lakes, you could solve
But I
it.
think that's what the subcommittee needs to figure this out, because you asked the question and I was shooting from the hip. But if we put a little more thought into it, we probably can come up with a better answer.
Right. So we're looking for volunteers. Who wants to take that on?
I'm willing to help.
I'm at Loch Lomond, I think, as much as anybody, and have as much contact with the members as anybody. I'd be happy to.
Okay,
Okay.
anybody else? Any other volunteers?
I'll volunteer for the one about size and horsepower and restriction, so I'd like to kick that off as well, if that's okay.
Well, then I'll volunteer for the watch, or did you already?
No, we need some watch people, so Paul,
Yep.
Matt, Trey, I don't know you, but I can get your information.
So Matt, Trey, and Paul for that.
Yeah.
And anybody want to help me with size and restrictions, okay? Anybody else? Jason, you got any time? We can kick it
members
off.
coming on, maybe
Yeah,
we'll
well-
get somebody from that group.
I can give the information that I got
Okay.
from that last report.
And Jerry, what was that? It was National Association,
NASBLA, NASBLA. It's the National Association of State Law Enforcement.
and Lakes is in that. Okay. Okay, great. We'll look into that.
There's boating law enforcement.
So Rick, Kelly, and Marvin, I know you're short term, but,
Yeah, I have some information I want to give
Okay.
you when I did that.
so you part of the,
17 shows all the different
You
boats
part
and
of-
their weights.
so you part of the group for the next couple of months then? Can you help them
Yes.
out? Okay. So the watch group would be Paul, myself, and Trey, and then the regs, boat regs would be Rick, Marvin, and Kelly, and potentially some new members, if we get new members on board. Okay. Anybody want to make a motion to formalize that process?
Well, I'll make the motion.
Okay. All right. So, anybody opposed to that? All in favor? All right. So we'll get that going. Okay,
I have one question
Go
on
ahead.
that. We've asked Rick to report, and the POA board adopted our rules that we recommended for the wakeboard issue. But there were a lot of things that the Lakes JAC made recommendations to, like improved signage on the buoys. So could we have, when you talk about that each month, could you kind of reference that original recommendations that the Lakes JAC made? Because I assume you're going to take a look at how to improve that, as an example, the signage on the buoys.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
okay, so the board meetings are, when's the next board meeting, Jerry? Is it on Thursday night, right? Do I get a volunteer to present the minutes of our meeting to the board? I'll even write them up if I get somebody to volunteer. 26th.
I think I can do that one.
I'm out. I'm out of town. Can you hit that one?
I think I can, yeah.
All right. Can you take the minutes and
Yeah.
do your own, or I'll help you write them up if you need help or whatever.
I'll just get them once you,
Yeah, his notes are really pretty
Finalize
good,
them usually,
so just hit the top line.
yeah, okay.
Okay. Anything else I'm missing from an agenda standpoint or from a we got to get done standpoint?
But something I meant to mention earlier, we had a cable that's attached to an anchor on one of the docks out at Loch Lomond, snapped in the windstorm this last weekend on D dock. No damage reported on any of the boats. We got somebody out this morning, dropped a new anchor and attached a new cable. So if anybody, it was reported pretty quick after it happened and got it taken care of super fast. But if anybody hears anything about that, it's been, we're back to stable.
So Trey, did you give your introduction about what you do last month? Because I don't know.
I don't know. Does anybody know what I do?
I don't really know who you are or what you do, but
Sorry.
I'm
Oh,
sort of
yeah,
getting
you were-
clues
that's right,
along
you
the
were
way
going
as you're
on the-
talking. So
yeah.
why don't you tell us
Sorry.
a little bit about who
work
you
for
are, what
POA.
you do, and that
Yeah.
sort of thing.
I'm the POA's outdoor rec manager. I do trails half the year and supervise the marina half the year, though those overlap quite a bit. So I'm running the marina on Loch Lomond.
Okay. I kind of deduced that after a little while
Yes.
when you were talking, but wanted to make sure who is this guy? Okay. All right. Anything else before we adjourn?
Yes. If you don't have dinner plans, come to BV tonight because 10% of the proceeds benefit the fly tires,
Yeah.
which is a very good organization for the Lakes Committee to have around.
Thank you, thank you.
And is that in the country club right here?
Yeah.
Right here at BV.
Okay. All right. Open forum. Yeah, I got guests. Any guests have anything to say? I almost forgot about you guys back there. You've been so quiet. Nobody have anything to say? Go ahead.
Josh Henderson, local builder, Bella Vista. I'm also a resident. Just listening to your stuff, part of it on Facebook, part of it here. You're talking about weight. Weight is produced by the weight of the boat. There are boats out there that actually take on more ballast than speed, and they will produce a larger wake. They can be going 5 miles an hour, and you can be wake surfing, wakeboarding, kneeboarding behind these things, and be going 5 miles an hour. Sorry, I'm trying to go through all my notes real quick because I know I've only got 5 minutes. Kayak tournaments. I believe that it would be in the best interest of the POA to actually sponsor that with a week before for pre-fishing. Maybe end that on Wednesday night, make them pay to use the lakes, but also the thing you've got to consider is these people that are coming in and fishing this live in Bentonville, Rogers, Springdale, they're local people. They're going to look at membership lots. If they have a good time out here fishing, they might buy a membership lot and start producing income for the POA versus the POA setting on lots that are not currently producing income for them. So something that I really think y'all should consider on that is truly looking at a POA sponsored, whether you partner with KBF, the Arkansas Bass Fishers, Bentonville Kayak down here right across from Lowe's, somebody like that. Of course, the kayak day that they do, I think that's a huge thing for POA members. I know it brings other people outside of the POA in, but POA members get a huge benefit from that, of being able to look at the possibility of having a kayak to use on the lakes. As far as the JAC openings, I know y'all talked about. As a resident of Bella Vista, I have not seen a single thing about that in the monthly letter I get from in my water bill. I could be mistaken. I might not have seen that in there, so I can be completely wrong. Corps of Engineers, they're right down in Rogers. I think they would be a great opinion to get on the wake on the shores. I don't know if y'all have done that. I'm ignorant on this, so
I've done it.
I think that's something that you all should use. They are a federal entity.
Let me clarify that a little bit. I went down and asked them about specifically wake boats when I was doing this in 2017. And I asked them if they were looking into changing any regulations or anything. And the answer that I got was they are controlled by our state government. They're the ones that make the rules.
Gotcha.
The Corps of Engineers has their hands tied.
Okay. I think a ranger committee, I know the POA, I know we just got an increase. I know there's a lot of other places the money could be used, but, potentially having one ranger on each lake, and I don't know what's currently going on. I don't utilize Bella Vista Lakes like I should as a member, as a homeowner up here. But if there was a subcommittee that maybe controlled the rangers and took those reports in, and whether it was volunteer rangers, whatever it might be, I think that's something big for y'all to consider. I know I'm a 26-year-old person sitting up here talking to people that are twice my age. These are things I see with the city, 3 times my age. I moved up here for the outdoors, the trails, the lakes, the kayak fishing, all that. I build houses up here because it's a great thing for me to sell to the people I sell houses to. And on the lakes, I think it's one of those things that when we passed the new POA increase, it really concerned me with the kayak fishing, the tournaments. To be able, as a POA member, it gave me an advantage to come up here and I could pre-fish a lake all year round. I knew where I wanted to go, what I wanted to cast, what I wanted to do. Then we got into a tournament where everybody's throwing in $50 to buy in, which is really not that much money, but the pot I might win $800, but I know my lakes. I know what I was going out and fishing. I know where I'm fishing at. I know what I want to go do. If the fish aren't biting that day, maybe I don't win. But it gave me an advantage, and I always believed that it pushed the want for somebody to come up here and actually buy a membership lot. Even if they come up here and spend $500 and they're spending $16 a month in POA dues, that is bringing money in that can be utilized in our community. And I know Bella Vista Ventures, King Montgomery, there's about 3 entities that own a large portion of lots in Bella Vista, and they do not pay their POA dues. And anybody that will tell me different, I will argue with all day, because I know the owners of those, because I buy lots off them quite frequently. I see the settlement statements. These people are 1 year, 2 years behind on their POA dues, and they're fighting the POA right now in legal battles because they're trying to sell their lots, versus a guy that owns 1 lot that wants to pay those POA dues. I mean, That's the thing, and I know some things have changed since Mr. Judson's taken power in Bella Vista as far as being in charge of the POA. But I believe this isn't a community that was meant to be owned by one or two individuals and own a large portion of the lots. Look at Hot Springs. I mean, that's a huge deal. There's not one person that owns 100, 200 lots down there. There's a lot of individuals, and they're using the amenities, they're doing everything, and that's the only way that we're going to see Bella Vista reach its full potential. I know I went over my 5 minutes. I will gladly step away at this point, but something I think we all should consider is the kayak tournaments and a ranger committee. As a member, I don't live on a lake, but if there's a ranger out there, it detours a lot of the bad behavior you see.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Quick comment regarding your comment regarding the committee volunteers. It was posted on our general POA e-newsletter, and it was also included in the Lakes e-newsletter. If you haven't signed up for those, I encourage you to do so.
I have not.
You can do that through our website, bellavistapoa.com. Also, I can't personally, no employee can comment on the who's paying and who's not. Yes, you may have inside information, but it would not be appropriate for me to disclose anything like that.
No, I completely understand that.
Okay, with that, anything else? Going once, going twice, meeting adjourned.